Welcome to Roadmap, how to take 3 listings a week until you're ready for more. Each week we interview a great agent who is consistently taking 2, 3, 4 listings each week, and maybe more in this case. And we have an exciting guest today. We encourage you to take notes and apply as much of their knowledge as quickly as you can, and then use the copycat principle. If you're watching on Vulcan 7, you'll have an opportunity. Actually, if you're watching on either network, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions. So take a lot of notes, get something to write with. Before I introduce our guest today, I want to remind everybody we're simulcasting the show on the private Lead Gen group on Facebook. They have 45,000 members now, and we have a large audience there today as well. We'll be pausing for a commercial message during the show as a thank you to the Lead Gen folks. My co-host, this is an occasional co-host. You've joined us before as a co-host.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun.
And we're thrilled to have her here today. Sarah Close, and Sarah owns several real estate market centers in Southern Ohio, and you sell real estate too.
I do, yes.
And how many homes did you sell last year?
136.
136.
236 is better.
236 is better.
536.
But what's the goal this year?
The goal this year is 200.
But even at 536, I think our guest will have beaten you. So it's gonna be fun. You'll be taking a lot of notes.
Absolutely. This is a learning experience for me.
Good. So I want to introduce our guest. I got a chance to shadow him. It was a 4-hour drive from the nearest airport that takes jets. You can get there on a propeller plane, so it was a real treat. And he was after expenses netting right about at $1 million back 5 years ago.
Wow.
But I understand he has really amped it way up beyond that now. So we're going to have a lot of fun, learn a lot from Redding, California. Let me welcome Mr. Josh Barker. How are you, Josh?
How's it going? It's great to have me. Thanks for having me on the call. I appreciate that. I've never been on Facebook Live before, so
good.
New experience. So hopefully I don't mess it up for you guys.
Yeah, that should be a lot of fun.
You're doing fine.
That's great. So we appreciate that a lot. And how's the best way for them to find you if they have a referral for Redding, Chico, and all through there?
Sure.
If they're in if it's Northern California, they should just reach out to you. Basically.
That's right. So two ways to communicate. One would be you could send an email to josh@reddinghomes.com.
Okay.
That would be an easy way. And then the second one,
REDDING, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's REDDING homes.com.
Okay.
Yep. So josh@reddinghomes.com. And then the other one is to just make a phone call, 530-222-3800.
Good. And as a bonus, they could probably go to reddinghomes.com and learn about how you're set up and what you're doing.
You're absolutely right, Ren. They sure could.
Well, it sounds like they could drive by any street in Redding and find one of your sons. So.
Yeah. Occasionally it feels that way.
That's all good.
Good deal. Wonderful. So we wanted to how many homes did you sell last year? Now that we're into 2018, how many homes did you sell?
Sure. Yeah. So year to date, finishing off 2017, we closed 595 transactions.
Wow. 595. How did you miss the mark?
I know, right? Exactly.
Switch. Come on.
Yeah. We carried over another 82 transactions into 2018. So
wow.
Can you imagine
we're still trending up.
That's fantastic.
82 carryover. That's pending. Can you imagine having 82 pendings?
That's a beautiful thing. It's like an office in and of itself.
So it sounds like and he is an office basically. Your team is an entire company, right?
That's correct. Yeah, I own a small Remax franchise, but it's essentially a shell for our sales team. We don't have independent agents that work for us or anything like that.
Gotcha.
Great. And you're probably outselling a lot of the companies in town.
I think we're number 3 in terms of market share for our market center at this point. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Josh, tell us a little bit about who all is in your organization. How are you guys structured? How many salespeople do you have? How are they supported? Just kind of give us a rundown of that.
Sure. Well, our company's broken down into 2 main segments. One is our sales team themselves, which last year in 2017 comprised of a total of 8 salespeople, me being one of those. And then the other part of the company is the administrative staff. So we do our very best to keep the salespeople, including myself, from the roles of buying and selling or representing buyers and sellers. And then we keep our administrative staff focused on the the administrative activities that are related to that.
So quick math on the productivity per person is really high. 8
Well,
sales
it
people
is,
for 595 units.
Yeah, if I broke it down, I wrote it down, so if I'm staring down, this is why. But as a company, we listed 450 listings last year.
Wow.
Of that, 325 I listed personally.
Wow.
We closed 325 of those listings, of which I personally handled 250 of them. And we closed 270 buyer transactions, of which I did 0.
Nice.
So I don't represent any buyers in the market. We'll have our agents take care of that. So the company grossed about 3.85 million.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so it did pretty well. And of course, there's cost for sales and everything else associated with that. So, and on our model, the imperfect part of the model that we have is that I still represent a very large portion of the transactions for the company. Long term, we want to scale this company to 1,000 transactions, which obviously means that I'm going to need more people doing more transactions to get there. It's not going to be me going out and listing 375 homes and selling 300. I don't necessarily want to do that. I don't think it would be in the best interest of our clients or our team if I did.
Or yourself or your family.
yeah, my wife would agree with you on that one.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
So some folks might be wondering how much time that takes. For the most part, between the end of February and the end of July, I in the past have worked 5.5 days a week to accommodate all those listings. In our market, that tends to be when the greatest amount of new sellers come to the market. After that, all the way through February, I'm only down to a regular 5-day work week. I don't have to work the weekends at all for about half the year. But there is a period of time each year where I'm running pretty hard, 5.5 days a week. So
Sure.
yeah.
Sure.
So that's the model in a nutshell. I mean, our goal for the next 12 months is we are wanting to scale the company. So we're on track for by the end of the year. I want to be on track for doing 1,000 transactions a year with the company.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and if anybody's wondering how we're going to do that, it's the answer is we'll need more agents. We'll have to have more people doing more transactions to get there.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you bring someone into your sales organization, what is the process for them as far as going from new agent just onto the Josh Barker organization to producing agent where you're not worried about what they're doing in the field and they're equipped? What does that look like?
It's a great question. Well, Sarah, the first answer to that is I'm very careful on who we select when we first bring them in. I don't bring in new green agents as a rule. And that's because some of the learning curves that a new agent goes through to get to a point where they can run, we would be wasting too many opportunities at the company level for me to bring in that new agent. Too many resources would be wasted. So we need an agent that's been in the business for a year or two, understands the vernacular, understands the market, understands how real estate's transacted in our area. I don't need them to be great agents yet. I just need them to have a basic foundation of what an agent is and how they operate. And then when I have that agent and I know that by them being in business with me, that I can make them a better agent than they could be on their own, that's when I know they're the right fit for the company. So I put a lot of time up front, make sure we got the right people. I want agents. I don't want the rock stars. Not that I wouldn't bring a rock star in, but if I can't make an agent better with our operation, then I don't think they're the right fit for our company.
That makes sense.
And there's some agents that are really good without me.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about what that criteria would be when you're looking at an agent and you can make that distinction of, I know that I can grow this person. What are the traits you're looking for? What are the production numbers or the attributes?
It wouldn't necessarily be production numbers, where they're at that particular day, although I would want them to have a goal for 50 transactions a year after being with me for 12 months.
Okay.
So I want them to be able to be thinking at that volume from day one. And if they can't think that way, then they're probably not the right fit from the start.
Wow.
The other thing I'm looking at with the agent is I want to make sure that whatever they need in a business relationship with me, that I actually have what they need. So if they want coaching and mentoring and training, we're the right company for that, because that's what we do. If an agent doesn't like doing the administrative activities, likes to stay in the role of selling, Well, that's what we do. We handle all the transaction management and the listing management and most of the client communications once the property is sold. So an agent that wants to stay in the role of selling and doesn't want to do the administrative activities, we're a great fit for that. So I just know what we do well, what our lane looks like, and I know I'm looking for agents that what we offer would be a complement for what they want and what they need, and it's a winning relationship for both of us.
Sure.
And I don't have a lot of turnover. We've grown pretty slow. I didn't set goals of recruiting 10 agents a month and netting 5. I didn't do that. I instead have focused on building the team from the ground up with a really strong foundation so that they can assist me in bringing in the right people in the future too.
That's fantastic.
Awesome.
That's great.
When I was out there 5 years ago, one of the things I remember was you were tracking and measuring everything, not only with the people you brought in that were working on the team, measuring how many units they have, what their production was and contacts and everything else, but you were also measuring customer satisfaction, which is, I understand, has brought you a lot of repeat and referral business because your customer satisfaction level is so high. Can you comment on some of those pieces?
Sure. I've been very fortunate. In our market, we have about 145,000 people in the county that we serve. 50% of our business comes from past clients and center of influence.
Wow.
We have to earn the right to continue to serve them, and so part of that is we communicate with them on a quarterly basis. We give them market updates each month. We provide the highest level of service that we're capable of providing. And so we've earned the response from that has been we're doing 50% of our business, both buyers and sellers, has been past client and repeat referral business. So how we measure that, and to your point, I think, Ren, is that I don't forgot the name of the book, but there's a question where you can ask on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being highly likely, how likely is it that you would continue to refer business or do business with us in the future? And we rate that both when we first list a property for sale, we rate it while we're in escrow, and we also rate it after the close of escrow. And how I'm able to manage the company and make sure our client communication and satisfaction is at the highest level is that anytime we get a rating that's lower than a 9, then I'm personally, as the owner of the company, I'm personally notified. And then that way I can get involved and decide how we, as a company, want to solve the potential for a unhappy client.
I remember that. It's stuck in my head. You said anytime I see anything less than a 9, and you were surveying your active and pendings.
That's right.
All the 2 or 3 or 4 points, and anytime there was anything less than a 9, you were on the phone to them going.
That's correct. Yeah, as the owner of the company, whether it be a client that I had a relationship with, which honestly is usually not the case, or an agent that works for me, and then that's where the problem's popping up. I would get on the phone. I would talk with the client on behalf of the company. I would try to solve the problem for a couple of reasons. One, because we want to do the right thing and continue to be recognized in our community as being, service orientated. But also I want to free that agent as fast as possible too. I know that agents become unproductive real quick if they're dragged down with a negative situation with a client. So if I get involved and solve that problem for everybody at a global level quickly, it allows everyone to be able to move forward and do what they need to do. So
that's great. What's the mechanism you're using for the survey process?
Well, each department actually does the evaluation. So our listing department does the scale of 1 to 10 right after we've got the property to the market. So that way, if we have a problem with photography or signs or any kind of marketing or promotion that we've offered to the client, if they're not satisfied, we want to identify that up front so we can solve it right away.
Right.
When we're in escrow, our escrow managers ask that question once we get through the request for repair. Because at that point, it should be a smooth transaction going forward. But if there is any problem with the client, from the client's perspective, we want to be able to have an opportunity to solve it before it closes escrow.
Sure.
And so the escrow managers ask the question at that point. And then after close of escrow, our client care coordinator makes the phone call following up and making sure they were completely satisfied, who also becomes the person that talks to them once a quarter afterwards anyway. So it becomes a kind of an opportunity for them to open up some dialogue.
Gotcha.
And each one of those is reported into our system. I run on a program, a CRM called Salesforce. So each one of those activities is recorded. So I can go into any file at any time and I can see based on where we're at in the escrow or the listing process, I can already see that they've been rated on a scale of 1 to 10. So I can see that reporting anytime I want to see it. But I don't pay attention to it, to be honest with you, every day personally, because I know if I'm going to get involved if it's less than a 9, and until then I don't have to worry about it.
Sure. So it's a conversation they're having
Mm-hmm.
as far as getting
Absolutely.
Okay.
And they're hearing it from 3 different people throughout the process. So they recognize too, by the end, they know that we are paying attention to how the client feels about the process.
Sure.
One of the things I remember was specifically to this is your administrative people worked real closely with the salespeople, and when they would call a client, they would say, Josh asked me to call you and ask, and whatever the conversation was.
That's
right.
Right.
Always using the name, and that made such a dramatic difference on customer satisfaction. You were able to measure if they stopped doing that. You were able to measure it.
I was, and I started off as an individual agent, figured out pretty early that if the administrative staff communicated by not used by name, then the client felt like they were handed off, and I would have to get reinserted into these transactions more frequently. So what we learned a long time ago was that when you call the client, you say, Josh asked me to give you a call. Josh wanted to share this information. Josh wanted to share that information. I spoke with Josh. This is what Josh recommends that we do. So we make sure the scripting is associated around whoever the agent is that's representing that client. So for my personal clients, that's what they would say. If it was one of my agents, they would use the agent's name to make sure that there's still a relationship, and we're keeping that link between the client and the agent. But I do believe that it's the company that's ultimately responsible for the overall client experience. The company is going to provide this minimum level of service, our minimum level of service, so hopefully exceeds the client's. And that the company is responsible for that. And we want the agent to be like the cherry on the top, right? So the minimum level of service the company delivers is so high and so strong, and then what the agent does is just that much more, and puts us just that much more over the top. That's how we see it.
Fantastic. Your per person productivity is so high. Obviously, your folks get this, that this is a contact sport. Are they, who are they calling, and where's a lot of your business coming from? Where are they making the connections?
Great question. So it depends on which side of the business you're looking at. There's obviously the listing side of the business and the buying side of the business. But what I can tell you is that I believe that the company is responsible for delivering between 50 and 75% of all the lead opportunities that the company services. So I take it the responsibility as the owner of the company that I have to generate, or I have to create tools, systems, lead generation ideas that create opportunities for the company. And I own that. I know that's my job, as one of my jobs in the company, is to make sure we have those opportunities. So lead generation, number one priority for the company, and I believe that the company is ultimately responsible for that happening.
Talk to us a little bit about what the mechanics are of that lead generation process that you're using to create that volume of opportunities.
Sure. Well, I mean, we talked about a little bit about the customer service side of it. So if you're expecting to get 50% of your business from past client center of influence, you're going to have to provide amazing service to your clients. Mm-hmm. You're going to have great communication systems in place where you're talking to them on a quarterly basis. You need to be giving market updates once a month. You need to be offering more value than just selling a home. So if you need a painter, a carpenter, plumber, whatever, you want to become that resource in your marketplace for any of your previous clients and future clients. So they just when they think about real estate, they're thinking about you. So that's a piece of it. Most agents are going to need some sort of a lead generation platform, so a personalized website, a website that can drive buyer and seller traffic. Social media now, it's proven to be a very good tool. People think, oh gosh, you spend all this time on social media. It's like, I don't do any of the social media. I have a marketing department that does it. But I make sure that we have social marketing and media that's going out. If you're marketing and promoting your listings properly, you will generate opportunity as a result of that. So, we get hired quite a bit just because sellers in the marketplace see our high quality photography, a lot of marketing exposure for the products, and they want that similar experience. So we get called on a regular basis because they want what they're already seeing us do for other clients in the market. But there's a distinct benefit there, because the better we do with marketing and promoting properties, the more buyer calls that we get, the more seller calls that we get, the whole thing just works.
Self-supporting.
That's right. Yeah. Prospecting is a big piece of what we do as a company. So Ren, you had mentioned, how do we do that? Because I know as a company, we have to control a large portion of all the leads that come in. Part of my job is to make sure those leads are being converted into appointments for both buyers and sellers, right?
Yes.
So I spend a lot of time coaching and training our agents so that they can convert at the highest level. We have a culture of agents prospecting between 2 and 3 hours a day. And they're not cold calls. In most situations, they're doing lead follow-up on consumers who have already inquired about real estate.
Gotcha.
We use can I mention website names here?
Sure.
Okay.
Go for it.
So I use a website. It's called Real Geeks for our website. And the back end of that, there's a CRM where we can manage all of our buyer and seller leads. My agents essentially have their own accounts, and they make calls into that account every single day. And it's my job as the company owner to make sure that they are converting those leads in their account at the highest level.
That makes sense.
Fantastic. Yeah, and you've been on that for a while. I remember that from 5 years ago. So
yeah, I've been on that site
obviously
for
it's working
a long
well
time.
for you.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that's the only one out there. There's Boomtown, and there's a ton of different sites. The key is that whatever you have, you got to make sure you're using it. What
about the listing business? Where is that a good source of listing business?
Well, again, if you take away that 50% that come from what I've already told you that we do, we do seller lead valuation tools into the marketplace. Social media tends to be a big piece of it. I've got in our market, I sell on Zillow. It says that we've sold, and I don't know what it is, a little bit over 500 homes a year is what Zillow would say. Mm-hmm. Because they don't track the double-ended properties. But because I'm the top agent in our market, we do get a lot of business that comes just because of that position in Zillow. And then a lot of prospecting calls, expireds and cancels, for sale by owners, just listed, just sold. All the things that you would expect from, as an agent that you'd be doing. But, where I had to make some shifts about 4 or 5 years ago was that, back then I was doing probably 150 transactions a year, and I didn't feel that I was able to prospect more hours per day to get to 250, right? So I started saying, okay, I'm gonna have to create some lead generation tools and systems that will give me potential seller leads that I can call, because I'm great at calling people and I'm great at scripts and converting them into appointments, but I needed higher quality call lists. Mm-hmm. And how I created this higher quality call list was that I started creating lead generation tools that like seller evaluation tools, people responding to our emails that we send out once a month, and so they revealed themselves as being somebody that might be interested in selling their home. There's a lot of different things that you can do that create a higher quality call list, and I started calling higher quality leads, and that allowed me to convert it at a higher level and get to that 250 that I did this last year.
Super. So it's they're going to a seller evaluation page. How much is my home worth? Right. Like that. And does that go out to past clients in Sphere too? I understand
it does. Yeah. So we've got a little bit over 3,000 past clients. Oops, sorry, Ren. I know we're.
Gotcha. Go ahead, please.
So we've got a little bit over 3,000 past clients in Center of Influence. So when I send out a market update or anything like that to our existing database, I mean, it's going to 3,000 people we've done business with. It's going to another 17,000 that I haven't done business with, but we have their information. So it's just this huge footprint of people that we're communicating with. And that's really, it's proven to help us get a better call list and of course, make sure you make those calls.
Makes a lot of sense.
So if I came to work for you and you were do you have people that just list property and just work buyers, or do they do a little both?
Well, I've got agents that are probably more specialized on the listing side. I've got agents that are more specialized in the buyer side, and then I have a few agents that do a little bit of both.
What would my day look like if I was specializing more on the listing side? What would my day look like? When would I get there? How would I do that?
How would you do that? So on the listing side, you'd be on the phone by 8 o'clock in the morning, prospecting. There's an order to prospect and that we follow. So we call expireds first, canceled second, then do your past client center of influence, just listed, just sold calls. And making sure that you have enough people to call to cover between 2.5 and 3.5 hours a day of phone calls.
What is your expectation? or contacts in that time frame? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No problem. So the goal is for the agents is that on the listing side, it's about 10 contacts per hour.
Okay.
Is essentially, that's actual conversations.
Okay.
10 conversations per hour on the listing side. On the buying side, it skews down a little bit because those conversations tend to be a little bit longer. Yeah. So on the buying side, if they're calling on buyer leads opportunities, it's going to be less. It's going to be probably somewhere between 6 or 7 an hour.
And I remember you were measuring all of that.
Makes sense.
They would type in their numbers and it would go into some global thing that would track everybody. And it was all automated.
It is.
Very
yeah.
impressive.
So we do have a numbers analyzer for the company. It allows me to track the agent's productivity, but I can also measure the agents against each other. Not necessarily to compete, but because if I have an agent that's really strong at converting a phone call to an appointment, I might want to pair them with another agent that's not as strong in that area. If I've got an agent that's really strong at converting a listing presentation into a listing, I might want to have that person working with somebody that's not as strong. So it allows me to pair the agents up with the right people. Yeah.
Yeah, great point. Makes a lot of sense.
Fantastic. What about, a lot of people are on this call and over the last 16, 18 people, almost everybody mentions coaching, things like that. And I know you're involved in coaching and training. And now that you've got this all figured out, why do you do that?
Well, I don't have it figured out. That's why I still do it.
Okay. But how long have you been in a coaching program?
I've been with Mike Ferry as my coach for 18 years now. Yeah, I was one of the lucky ones. Day one in real estate, and actually the gentleman I'm referring to works with me now. We're in business together here. But day one in real estate, a friend of mine said, "Hey, Josh, if you're going to want to do this at a high level, you need to listen to these CDs and tapes." And actually, I think it was tapes back then. And it happened to be a Mike Ferry Superstar Retreat from like 1995 or something. So I wore out those cassettes for the first 12 months. I hadn't met Mike yet at this point, but I had about 12 months of just listening to all of his tapes all day.
You had all the jokes memorized.
All the jokes, yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so my first experience seeing Mike, I was, the typical agent in the back of the room and looking at all these top producers in the front of the room, and this guy on the stage who was speaking a message that was so simple, so clear, so direct, so unapologetic. And I was hooked from day one. I was like, this is the company that I'm going to associate myself with for the long term, and it's proven to be a great relationship. So,
remember who that was, by the way?
Well, it's Mike Ferry on the stage. So.
Oh! I thought you meant somebody who was interviewing. Okay, gotcha.
What's this unapologetic?
Unapologetic.
Yeah. Talking about.
Yeah, unapologetic. Yeah, that would.
He's unapologetic, and so it took me 2 years. It was so incredible. I don't know why I did that, but it took me 2 years after going to Superstar Retreat before I would even shake the guy's hand. I mean, it was like the Pope or something. I wasn't allowed. I just would not get close to the guy. So. So since then we've created a great relationship and have had the opportunity to be a coach for him a few times, and we did the team building class together for a while where we're helping some agents grow their businesses, and everything I've done with that company has been just a good experience. I'm not trying to make it a promotion, but I think that if I hadn't learned how to prospect, do great lead follow-up, make quality presentations, and provide a great customer experience, had I not gotten that kind of training when I was I'm 42 now, so I was 23, 24 at the time. Being young and having that kind of exposure at that level, I mean, it changed my life.
Awesome. So you're doing so I know what the foundation's like. So asking you how long a typical listing presentation is in for you or the people in your team.
Sure.
How long is that?
Well, great question. So for me, it's getting shorter and shorter. The Mike Ferry presentation is 20 minutes long. I've always kind of felt it was a little bit longer than it needed to be. So So 15 minutes tends to be where my average presentation is, and then it takes about 10 or 15 minutes to finalize the paperwork and thank them for their time and get out the door. So what I've learned is that my presentation has changed, and I'm not saying this is a good thing to do, but what's happened is that my assumption of me taking the listing is so high now. I used to go on interviews thinking I was interviewing for the job of selling the home. Now I believe I've already been hired when I show up. And so really it's just a matter of walking them through the process. They need to know what to do to get their home prepared for sale. They need to know what their home is going to sell for. They need to know what we're going to do to market and promote it and how that process works. And they need to know what they're going to net. And, I just walk in assuming I already got the listing. I just got to walk them through this process so they understand what to expect. And then I'm done. I get to leave. So it usually takes me from door to door 30 minutes to make that presentation, 15 minutes of actual presenting and 15 minutes of paperwork because we live in California. But then we're out. And then, and then the next thing that I always make sure, I think it's something your viewers would want to know, is that I never leave the client not knowing what to expect next. I mean, when you think about it, we know our jobs so well that, we can follow along with our own presentations pretty easy because we say them all the time. Our clients don't hear most of what we say anyway. So there's no reason to cloud them with too much stuff, right? So once the listing is signed, I make sure our client always knows what to expect next. And in our situation, it would be them hearing from our listing department to schedule for photography or home staging or whatever it is. But they always know what to expect next. Every time we talk to a seller, with a market update each week, they always know what to expect next. So the call would be something on the lines of, okay, if we don't generate an offer between now and next Tuesday, you'll be hearing from our office to confirm any showings you've had between now and then. So they always know what to expect next in every step of the process, and I've found that it makes everything go a lot smoother.
Good. So listing appointments to listings taken is probably a pretty high number then.
Yeah. Well, this last year for me personally, our listings taken, mine was 80%.
Okay.
And I don't set a lot of those appointments anymore either. I mean, the company set, it was just over 500 listing appointments last year that were set where clients called in and wanted to interview my company for the job of selling their home. I ended up going on just over 400 of those appointments personally, and I ended up listing 325 of those. So it kind of gives you an idea what that looks like, right? The other appointments that were created by the company, I had other agents go on those presentations. And, to what we were talking about earlier, that's where the growth is going to be in the company next year, is that I'm going to have more appointments being set by the company and the agents taking more of those presentations.
Fantastic.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, before you get there, you're, heavy pre-qualifying, I assume, pre-listing packet of some sort or some information they get somehow ahead of time. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you can't get in and out in 30 minutes. Oh,
absolutely. Yeah. So to your point there, when a client calls in the office, the more 9 times out of 10, they won't talk to me personally, and mainly because I'm not available. I'm on an appointment, or I'm on the phone, or I'm meeting with a client. I mean, I'm normally not here when the call comes in to meet with them to list their home. So what happens is they go to my ISA, I have a person that works for me that takes those types of calls. And what she'll do is she'll schedule the appointment. She'll go through a simple pre-qualification checklist to make sure we know all the information we need to know about the client. We'll let them know that we're going to prepare a market analysis and a marketing plan, and we'll have it delivered to them prior to the appointment. So the seller, my goal would be is that when a client calls in the office with the goal of setting an appointment, they can get what they wanted. They can call, they can get their appointment set, they can get the simple pre-qualification handled, and they can expect to get some sort of a deliverable at their home prior to the appointment. All that happens in spite of me. Back in the older days, I would go on an appointment, get back, I'd have 2 phone calls from sellers who I needed to return call them and set an appointment to go meet with them, right? That means the seller didn't get what they wanted when they called. They had to wait for me to come back and get in touch with them. So I solved that problem a long time ago, and I think it created more appointments.
Fantastic.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. One question that came in is around for sale by owners. Do you guys do a lot of active prospecting for sale by owners?
I wouldn't consider it active in comparison to some other markets. I've coached agents that have 50 or 75 for sale by owners at a time in their market. In our market, because we're always caught up on the for sale by owners, we might have anywhere between 4 and 5 a week. Gotcha. Total in the entire market. And we're up to date on all of our FSBOs, so it's not like I'm going to be able to find 50 somewhere because we've been working on them all the time.
Sure, makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Super. That's great.
Let's open it up to some questions. They're going to have to on either the Vulcan 7 network or on the Lead Gen Facebook network. If you guys will type in some questions. Does Josh have a YouTube video of this listing presentation?
I do, but I won't share it.
What market analysis do you exactly do? I guess they want to know how, what.
Against the advice of my coach, I actually still do my own market analysis. And that's because in our market in Redding, California, we have such a diverse types of properties. So I might be on one presentation at 1 o'clock on 10 acres for the 2,500 square foot home. And at 3 o'clock, I might be on an appointment in a subdivision for a 1,200 square foot home on a quarter acre lot. So everything's a lot different in our market. So I tend to like to do my own market analysis before I go out. It typically takes me about 10 minutes to prepare a market analysis in our market. And then I provide that to my ISA, who then sends it out with the marketing plan to the seller prior to the appointment. So I like showing up to an appointment and knowing that I know the comps that are on the sheet. I've tried to outsource that before a few times, but I was never happy with the comps that were selected. And, it's because I had my own, my own quirks or whatever.
Your own theory to how to do it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. What about expired listings? Is that an opportunity source for you guys?
It is a lot like the force of my owners, though. I mean, let's say that we probably have about 100 expireds a month that come off the market. Okay. Of those, let's say there's probably 50 or so that have the potential for being relisted. And so it's a little bit over, 1.5 to 2 a day that we get to call on. Gotcha. And we do get a lot of our business from expireds. The thing that's changed in years past is that I get a lot of expired sellers calling me. Mm-hmm. Because we're in a smaller market and they've seen their neighbors sell with our sign in their yard. And so when their listing gets ready to expire, they're contacting our office. So I would say about 25% of what we list on the expired side are people calling me. Right. Those are pretty good interviews because I get to do a lot of those interviews in the office because the house has already been photographed in the past. So I'm familiar with the condition and those kind of things. So it makes it a very efficient appointment for both the client and for myself.
Yeah, that sounds like it. That's terrific.
A lot of questions about expireds. Where do you get your scripts from?
Sure. Well, the My Fairy script is by far, in my opinion, if you're going to pick a script out there in the market, it's still the best expired script there is. I've modified it a little bit for our market just because I call a lot of the phone numbers that are published in our multiple listing service are the agents. Mm-hmm. And so, sometimes when I was prospecting, in the past, before I made this change, when I was prospecting, I'd be talking to an agent for a couple minutes before I'd figure out what was going on. Right. And so one of the questions that I changed in it was that I'll say something along the lines of, I was looking your home up on the multiple listing service this morning, and it was telling me that it was either an expired or a canceled listing. Is that right? And I can tell by their answer if they're an agent or if they're the seller. Because if they're the agent, they're like, oh, well, thanks, Josh, for telling me. I'll make sure to get that changed right away.
Right on that, yeah.
All right. And if it was a client, I could tell based on their response to it, which allowed me to go to the next question, which was, are you still planning to sell the home or have your plans changed forever? And I like to say that because usually it invokes a response of some sort.
Nice. That's a great question. Mm-hmm. That's a great question.
Occasionally they'll respond back with saying, well, no, we're not going to sell anymore. And I'd say, okay, I can appreciate that. I mean, just imagine for a minute that you'd had an offer on your home, let's say a week ago, at the price that you wanted to sell your home for. Could you see yourself taking that offer, or is that the part that's changed? And that question tends to get them to go, well, if I got that offer, I think I'd be still willing to sell it.
Right.
And I would actually be honest with you, I close right then and there. I wouldn't even ask any more questions. I'd be like, well, gosh, just the fact that you're saying it means we should probably get together for 10 minutes. And so I would close right then and there. You'll probably figure out if you've been around me for a while that I think we spend a lot more time on things when we don't need to.
Yeah.
Instead of asking 20 questions, why not just ask 5 and set the appointment?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. So what other questions do we have here?
We have, yes, Jeremy, he did say Mike Ferry script. How do you, what are the average price points you're working with in Redding? What does that look like? Yeah,
well, it's California, so everybody thinks it's millions of dollars, but we don't live in that part of California. So average sales price for our company was $280,000 last year. Okay. The average sales price in the marketplace was $265,000.
Gotcha. And you have some luxury there. I remember you had that drone photography.
Yeah, we've got a few nice properties, but a couple of years ago I had sold a home for I think like $1.4 million or something, and I mean, I had a call from the newspaper reporter. So it's like, okay, we're gonna sell, if you got a call by the newspaper guy after selling a property for $1 million for it, you know that you don't have a lot of high-end homes in your market. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Somebody's asking a question about basically pre-qualifying in a lot of ways. Do you work with anyone and everyone, or are your agents selective with their time, is the question Sterling is asking.
Excellent, Sterling. That's a great question, Sterling. In my view, the more lead generation that you get, the higher the quality of the lead that you could set as your minimum standard. So, I've heard this before, and I do believe it's to be true that the quality is in the quantity in a lot of cases. So the more leads we're able to generate as a company, we can raise our minimum standards. What I go out on a listing presentation personally now, last year actually was in 2017, I'm talking about, I wouldn't go on anything less than 250,000 as a rule. Now there was exceptions to that rule, but that was the rule. And my agents would go on those that were below that. Okay. This year I will likely raise that up to close to 300,000 personally. And then my agents will take care of that under 300,000 portion of it. And I think I'll continue to do that going forward, because as I want to create more time for developing additional lead generation ideas and tools and systems for the company, I'm going to have to get some time probably from listing presentations to do that.
Sure, that makes sense.
Somebody was asking how many times do you call an expired or for sale by owner before you quit calling, you or other people on your team?
Well, it depends on what they've said, right? I mean, if somebody, if there's a condition that's been created that has to be removed for them to even want to sell their property, I probably wouldn't continue those phone calls from that point going forward. But for the most part, I mean, I'd be willing to call somebody 8, 9, 10, 12 times before I give up, and that's probably more than most.
Yeah.
But until you say something that creates a condition on the sale that I have to wait for it to be removed in order for you to list your home, I'm going to keep going after you, because if you're going to list with somebody, it should be with us. We think we're going to do a great job for you.
Sure.
Can I dial back and say, man, this one goes back, 6, 7 years or 8 years or 9 years. You're only making 400,000. What was your morning like? What did you do? Because there are a lot of people that maybe they're at 100,000 or 200,000 income, and they wanted to get to 400,000 or 500,000 in income. What did it look like? What was your day like then? What should they do? What's the next steps for somebody like that?
That's a great question. So I'll try to give you snapshots of that journey. Okay. So in that first couple of years of getting into real estate, I was prospecting roughly 6-7 hours a day. And it was no exaggeration. That's how many hours I was prospecting. And for obvious reasons, I didn't have any business. And I had to create business. So I was talking to usually between 100 and 150 clients a day. It depended on the type of leads that I was calling. If it was just listed, just sold, I could talk to about 25 people an hour back then. Because we didn't have a dialer, we were double dialing using those, double headsets and everything else. But it was between 100 and 150 contacts a day. And what happened was, as soon as I started going on more and more listing presentations, that started cutting into my prospecting time. So, and I go on a listing presentation at 2:00. Well, my prospecting would end at 1:30 then on that day, right? So over time, what happened was I started scaling my prospecting down. So first couple of years, it was probably 6-7 hours a day. Year 4 or 5, I was down to probably 4 hours a day. Year 6 through 10, I was at 3 hours a day. Just following the order of prospecting. So it was expireds, canceled, for sale by owners, past clients, center of influence, and then just listed, just sold was like the rest of the day, right? I would call as many until I ran out of time. That's what I did. Today, I'm down to an hour a day. Of how much prospecting that I do, and it's mostly aimed around really high quality expired or canceled, or past client center of influence that I have those really strong relationships with that refer business to us every year.
So when you were doing 6 and 7 hours a day, obviously you would have had a lot of business going on, and a lot of agents are going to feel like I got to go work on my pending.
Yeah, within 12 months, I had my first assistant. I think I did 42 deals in the first 18 months. So once I figured out what real estate was and then learned how to sell it, within about 18 months, I was already trending about 40, 50 deals. And so at that point, I already had an assistant. I wasn't doing any of the escrow management. Back then, it was, early 2000s. So, there wasn't a lot of marketing and promotion of a listing either. You'd list it and put it on the computer and have competing offers in an hour, right? So that I didn't have, like today, I've got 2 listing managers that manage about 120 listings at a time. Well, I mean, back then you didn't have to have that big of an inventory because everything was selling quickly.
Right.
Yeah. So you would, I mean, when you're calling 6 or 7 hours a day, your admin's prospecting, handling the escrows.
Yep.
So, because this is going to be a problem that agents watching now are going, and they're going to call expireds and FSBOs and past clients in January, February, March. Somewhere in April, they're going to start having a lot of pendings and closings.
Right.
By the time they hit May, they stop looking for new business.
Right.
If that was you, how would you make sure that in May and June and July and August, you're still looking for new business? All admin.
Well, it's got to be admin. Yeah, you're going to want to have escrow managers. You may not need a listing manager yet, depending on how big your inventory is, but you're definitely going to need to have an assistant at 50 transactions. And I think you'll need, that if you plan to go to 100 transactions, you're going to need that second assistant in order to do that. You can't expect that you're going to do 100 deals with one assistant and say, okay, once I do 100 deals, now I'm going to hire my second assistant. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. When you anticipate that you're going to be doing 100 transactions, it's your responsibility to make sure you have the capacity in your transaction and listing management to be able to provide great service to those clients so that you feel like you can stay on the phone. A lot of agents get pulled out of production because they feel that their clients are not being taken care of. Mm-hmm. And so you solve that by making sure you've got great staff that are providing great service to your clients. That allows you to feel like you can go out and continue to prospect for more business.
That's huge. That's huge. And that is the biggest problem that most of the people watching the show are going to experience as we go into the year. Yeah. That is their biggest problem is they catch so many fish, they have to go deal with them.
Right.
And they stop pulling in fish. Yeah.
Well, and they're probably a bit nervous about, making that investment into an employee because it costs money and those kinds of things. So what I've always coached our agents to do, when I was coaching for Mike, his clients, I would just tell the agent, I'd say, hey, look, here's the thing. Your average employee, let's say they cost you $50,000 a year. You anticipate based on hiring this employee that you're going to do 50, 60 deals. Okay. If you're wrong, you don't have to keep the employee all year long.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So you can take the chance, you can hire the employee, you can put them in that role, you can make sure they're trained and that they're providing great services to your clients. In 6 months from that point, so $25,000 invested, not 50, $25,000 invested, you'll be able to look at your business and determine whether or not the time that was created because of leverage, did you invest it into additional prospecting and appointments?
All right. Did you get the ROI out?
Yeah. Did you get the return on investment? Exactly. And if you've determined that did take place, then you're keeping that person. And the question is, how fast can you get the next person in there so you even have more time to go out there and do that?
Good, because that'll solve it. Let me ask 2 final questions here on the Facebook group, and then we'll just thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Hold on. Melissa asked, do you change your script when you call luxury homes, higher end
stuff? I think the approach will be a little bit different. I mean, I tend to get a little bit robotic when I'm calling, $250,000 to $275,000 expired listing dialers out there, Vulcan and all this stuff, right? Yeah. When you're making those calls and they're coming into your dialer and you're making tons of contacts, I would probably do that in the lower price properties. So, just to be efficient with my time. But on high-end properties, I wouldn't do that. I would slow down. I'd make sure that I have all the right information right there in front of me. I would make sure that I'm uninterrupted in that conversation because the ROI or the return on the time on that particular call is so high that it's worth slowing down and making sure that you get it right the first time.
Yeah. Not all contacts are created equal.
That's right. You're exactly right.
Good. And what is the ratio of actual conversations to secured listing appointments?
Oh gosh, well it depends on the agents, right?
I guess so.
Yeah, for me personally, I mean,
I guess that's contacts to listing stay. Contacts to appointments, yeah.
Yeah, contacts to appointments. So there's a lot of years in there what I'd have to talk to. The beginning was probably to set an appointment a day, I'd have to talk to 125 people. And that's
So if you do 125 a day, you can probably you can probably meet with somebody every day.
oh, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, so there we go, everybody. Just make 125 contacts a day, and every day you
Yep.
can have a listing appointment.
Yep.
Don't screw it up.
Yeah, right. So watch this transformation. So 125 in the beginning. As I got better at my scripts and skills, that dropped into maybe the 75 range. As I got even better, got down into the 50 contacts to an appointment set. And then I remember for a long time when I was doing 150 deals a year, it was probably in that 20 to 30 contact range was where the appointments were being set for each day. And then that's kind of the point when I realized, I was like, man, I want a better call list. I want to be able to talk to 10 people and set an appointment. And how I did that was I literally just started improving the quality of the people that I was calling. So expireds, top shelf stuff, FISBOs, top shelf stuff. But once you get past those really top shelf things that we all know, now you got to start creating additional call lists that have high quality prospects on them.
Right.
Fantastic. I'll tell you that this is chock full of good information. So let me read my last little thank yous, because really, Aaron Wittenstein, I want to thank you for simulcasting this show on the Lead Gen group. If you want to get involved with them, they are at facebook.com/groups/got objections. He runs a little program called expiredmasteryelite.com. And other than that, maybe you need to get involved with some sort of coaching. It's helped Josh Barker. There's a lot of ways to get out there and do something. And 125 contacts. There you go. You got the answer. And
Magic bill.
it is.
Magic bill.
We got to keep the lights on. So wherever you are in North America, if you have done your job, you've done your 6 or 7 hours of prospecting, get out a big spoon and get some delicious Grater's mint chocolate chip. You can find it anywhere in North America. All you have to do is go to graters.com and get the mint chocolate chip. It's the best. They don't have cherry Garcia. So thank you again for everybody for being here. We'll see you guys again next week. I don't know if we're going to find anybody that does 596 units, but we'll try to have another good guest for you in 7 days from now. Thanks again, everybody. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, guys.
See you again soon.
Okay, you got it.
Thanks, Josh.